There is a little intercontinental rivalry, mainly Brian. His writing.
Boys legend Brian Wilson
has died at the age of 82.
All right, well, breaking news. Beach Boys legend Brian Wilson has passed away. We just got this news moments ago.
Brian Wilson, the frontman and co-founder of the Beach Boys, has died at the age of 82.
All right, well, breaking news. Beach Boys legend.
Some words are louder than any song. Some silences are heavier than the loudest applause. And when Paul McCartney finally spoke about Brian Wilson's death, the world stopped. Just for a moment, time froze. It wasn't a big announcement. There was no flashy headline. No long tribute video. Just a single post on Paul's personal account. A few words, quietly written, "God Only Knows" is the most beautiful song ever written. Brian was a genius. A wounded one, but a genius. Some of us never said it out loud. And that was it. But that little post, it hit like thunder. No hashtags. No pictures. Just truth. And suddenly, everyone remembered something they already knew in their hearts. Brian Wilson wasn't just the guy who made music about surfing and California girls. He was the man behind some of the most emotional, beautiful sounds the world had ever heard. And Paul McCartney, the Paul McCartney, was finally saying it out loud. People have known for a long time that Brian Wilson and Paul McCartney shared something deeper than music. It was like they were mirrors of each other. Two geniuses chasing the same dream but in very different ways. They were never enemies. But they were never quite friends either. Maybe that's why Paul stayed quiet for so long. Maybe it was respect. Or maybe it was guilt. Back in the 1960s, the Beatles and the Beach Boys were in a quiet race. Each time one band did something amazing, the other tried to go even further. When the Beatles released Rubber Soul, Brian felt inspired. He thought, "I can do better." That's when he made Pet Sounds. And when Paul heard Pet Sounds, he couldn't believe it. He listened to God Only Knows again and again, all night, just to make sure it was real. Then Paul responded with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That album was the Beatles' masterpiece. But it also made Brian question himself. Was he falling behind? Was he good enough? Maybe he pushed too hard after that. Maybe trying to match Sgt. Pepper's broke something inside him. Fans have wondered about this for years. Why did Paul never say anything big about Brian? Why did he stay silent as Brian's life fell apart? Now, with Brian gone, Paul's words feel like the answer. Some of us never said it out loud. That single line was a confession. And it opened the floodgates. Social media went wild. Fans of the Beatles. Fans of the Beach Boys. Music lovers of all kinds. They weren't arguing anymore. They were grieving. Together. People posted old pictures. Paul McCartney crying while listening to God Only Knows at a rehearsal years ago. Videos of Brian at the piano, lost in a melody only he could hear. Hashtags like #LoveAndMercy, #Brian Wilson, and #God Only Knows shot to the top in countries all over the world. Brian wasn't just a music man. He was a soul in pain. And his pain spoke to everyone. But before Brian was famous, before he was broken, he was just a little boy from California. Brian Douglas Wilson was born in 1942. His father, Murray, was a failed musician. But he wasn't just strict. He was cruel. He hit Brian. Yelled at him. Made him feel small, even when he showed early signs of genius. Once, Murray hit Brian so hard in the head that he lost hearing in his right ear forever. That one moment changed his life, and changed music history. You see, most people hear in stereo. Brian didn't. That created a strange, empty space in his world. But instead of breaking him, it gave him a new way to create. It's like he could feel sounds others didn't even know existed. While other kids played ball, Brian sat at his keyboard. He listened to jazz, classical music, and old vocal groups like the Four Freshmen. He didn't just hear music. He saw it in colors. He felt it in waves. In 1961, he started the Beach Boys with his brothers Dennis and Carl, his cousin Mike Love, and a friend named Al Jardine. At first, they sang songs about the beach, cars, and sunshine. America loved it. They became huge. But Brian, he wanted more. He didn't want to write happy songs just because they sold records. He wanted to tell the truth. That truth came out in Pet Sounds in 1966. It wasn't just another pop album. It was a masterpiece. It was gentle, deep, and heartbreaking. Songs like Wouldn't It Be Nice, You Still Believe in Me, and Caroline showed a different side of pop, one that wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet, honest, and real. And then there was God Only Knows. That song isn't just pretty. It's pure. It's raw. It's like a letter from someone who doesn't know how to say, I love you, except in music. Paul McCartney said it best. He called it the most beautiful song ever written. That wasn't just a compliment. That was the highest praise from one genius to another. But while Pet Sounds changed music, it didn't sell like the label wanted. Critics were confused. Fans didn't know what to do with such sad, emotional songs. Brian had poured his soul into every note, and it felt like nobody heard it. That silence broke him. He started working on an even bigger album, Smile. It was going to be a teenage symphony to God. He used strange instruments, recorded parts of songs out of order, had his musicians chew celery instead of playing drums. It sounds silly, but he was doing something no one had ever tried. But the pressure became too much. Bandmates didn't understand. The record label got nervous. Drugs, fear, and voices in his head took over. And one day, Smile just stopped. It was never finished. Brian shut himself away. He stayed in his room for weeks, months, sometimes even years. And music lost him. For a long time, people thought Brian was gone forever. He got heavier. He talked less. He stopped creating. His father had secretly sold the Beach Boys' music rights. That broke him even more. By the 1970s, Brian was a ghost in his own home. A genius locked away. Then came someone who promised to save him, but ended up controlling him. Eugene Landy was a doctor hired to help Brian. And at first, it looked like he did. Brian lost weight, got off drugs, returned to music. But soon, Landy became more than a doctor. He made Brian sign over his money, his songs, even his decisions. Brian couldn't eat without permission, couldn't speak to family, couldn't even date. Brian was no longer a person. He was a puppet. And then, someone fought back. A woman named Melinda Ledbetter. She met Brian at a car dealership. She didn't see a lost star. She saw a human being. She helped expose Landy. With the help of lawyers and family, Landy was banned for life in 1991. Brian was finally free. But he was also broken. Still, with Melinda's help, he tried again. And in 2004, he finally finished Smile. The album that nearly destroyed him was now complete. Critics called it a miracle. Paul McCartney came to a show, gave Brian a hug, whispered, "You finally did it." Brian cried. In his later years, Brian didn't do many interviews. He wasn't flashy, but he still performed sometimes. Played Pet Sounds live. Fans would stand in silence, tears in their eyes. Not just because the music was good, but because it came from somewhere real. It came from pain and beauty and survival. In 2016, the movie Love and Mercy told Brian's story. It didn't sugarcoat anything. It showed the young genius and the older man struggling to find himself. Brian saw it. He said, "That was hard to watch. But that's how it was." Then in 2022, he played his last show. He didn't sing. He barely played. But the audience stood and clapped for minutes. Because they knew. This was goodbye. In 2023, his health got worse. Then in 2024, Melinda, his wife and protector, passed away. After that, Brian's memory started fading fast. By 2025, he had dementia. He didn't always know who he was, or remember the music he had created, the music that changed the world. And then, on June 11, 2025, Brian Wilson passed away at home. He was 82. No big headlines. No flashy funerals. He just left. And the next day, Paul McCartney broke his silence. He didn't need to write much. He just needed to say what everyone else had felt all along. Brian was a genius. He was also human. Flawed. Fragile. But honest. And that honesty turned into music that still makes people cry, decades later. Today, songs like God Only Knows are taught in music schools around the world. Not because they're hits, but because they're true. They came from a place most people are afraid to go. And Brian went there, so we wouldn't feel so alone. He didn't write music to sell records. He wrote music to survive. And now, even though he's gone, his songs remain. Not as pop hits, but as lifelines. If you've ever listened to *, wouldn't it?